Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be talking about Phase 4 of the MCU, which has just been released over the past week, I believe, as to what films and TV shows we'll be seeing in the next couple of years, so I wanted to talk about it. So let's discuss. So the first movie that we'll be discussing is Black Widow, which is a film that we already knew was coming out for quite a while now. I'm not sure exactly when the announcement was made that this film would be coming out. It was probably around the same time as we found out about Captain Marvel. But honestly, when I first heard about both films, I was wondering why Black Widow just wasn't the first film to portray a female lead, just because we already had Scarlett Johansson for 10 years at that point. They might as well have just had her be in her own film from the start. But yeah, so I already knew this film was coming out. I heard that we will be hearing about like Budapest, and there will be another Black Widow in the film, and the main villain will be Taskmaster. So I think it'll be a lot of fun, really interesting to see how that film goes. And I guess it will be taking place in the past because Black Widow is well, spoiler alert if you're not caught up with all the films, but hopefully you are if you're reading about what's going to be happening in Phase 4. But Black Widow is, in fact, no longer with us. She died in Avengers Endgame. So, because of that, of course, the film's taking place in the past. That with us finding out what exactly happened in Budapest clearly shows that the film's going to be taking place at some point earlier in the timeline of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I'm definitely excited to see one of the other Black Widows, someone else from the Red Room, because we haven't really explored the Red Room and really Black Widow's past at all in the last 10 years. So it'll be interesting to see a little bit more about that, and to see Taskmaster, who's a very interesting villain. His abilities are that he can copy the fighting abilities of anyone he sees. Obviously, he can't copy powers, but he can copy, like, if he was fighting against Spider-Man, like he does I believe in the game, you'll fight Taskmaster at one point, so he does start copying some of Spider-Man's moves. It's a similar deal with any other real skilled fighter. He'll just copy you and be able to predict all of your movements before you do them. So, interesting villain, definitely cool. Something I do want to see how Black Widow would fare against an opponent like this. Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm definitely excited to see this film. It's the first film that we have coming up in the line of Marvel films after Spider-Man Homecoming. So it'll be taking place, I believe, next year in May. So, yeah, I'm excited. So the next thing that we have to talk about is the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show, which is going to be on the Disney Plus streaming service. It's going to be taking place, I think, fall 2020 is what it says on the poster, or the big, like, grand image that they show at, like, Comic-Con that shows all the different lineups for Phase 4. So, yeah, that'll be end of next year. I'm interested about the show. I'll probably watch it whenever I get the chance. It really isn't something that I'm, like, super interested about. Of the two characters, I'm more interested in the Winter Soldier, just because I loved the Winter Soldier film. So, yeah, I'm just glad to see that, and it's going to be interesting to see Falcon as Captain America now that he has picked up that mantle. So I believe his suit will be different. So yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes, but it's definitely not something that I was, like, needing in my life. It's just another Marvel show that's going to be cool to watch. I'll definitely check it out, but wasn't something that I was looking forward to in any real capacity. But I am excited that it's another show that I get to watch at some point down the line. Okay, so the next film that we have is The Eternals, which will be coming out next year, 2020, in September, no, November. And this film I'm actually quite excited about. We've known about it for a couple years now, I think. I think we had first learned about it prior to learning about Captain Marvel and the Black Widow film. So we've definitely known about it for a while. Just so you guys know, the Eternals are a deviation from humans. Billions of years ago, the Celestials, which is another ancient race in the Marvel Universe, they came to Earth and experimented on us, and they created three distinct species, I guess would be the right word. They created humanity, which would later on down the line, at some point, begin to mutate and become mutants. And then they created the deviants, which are the origins of many of our tales about like trolls, elves, things of that nature. They were basically like a subsect of humanity that had features of like physical disfigurement and things of that nature. And they mainly lived in like caves and like underground and things like that. They're very similar in features to the mutants like the Morlocks, who live in like the sewers of, I believe, New York and things of that nature. They're kind of like that. They're just a different type of humans. And then we have the Eternals. The Eternals were made as like a perfect type of human being. And they, in the comics at least, they have like flight, they have regeneration, I believe they have like extended lifespans, they have super strength, things of that nature. And they're just like the peak physical fitness of like humans, things of that nature. They're basically like supermen, and superwomen is basically how I would describe them. And a lot of people know who the Eternals are based off of the fact that Titan is, which is the home planet of Thanos, was a planet of Eternals. So they are technically Thanos is a Earth-based person because his origin dates back to Earth. So all the Eternals are, and Thanos' family all originates from Earth, but they are the Eternals. So I hope to see, possibly, I don't know how far back the Eternals movie will be taking place. I don't remember. I believe it takes place a long time ago, but again, I'm not sure what the lifespan of an Eternal is. So we could potentially see like Thanos' father or his family, and things of that nature, if possible, because I believe Thanos' father is a very well-known and renowned scientist. So he's like a very important figure of the Eternals on Titan. So I think that could be interesting to see. I'm very excited. I want to know exactly what we'll be seeing in this film. And I do believe we'll be going through a lot of the early years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I think it'll be interesting to see. And it's definitely something that I've been looking forward to. So yeah, Shaanxi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So I don't know who Shaanxi is. The only thing I really know, I think it was years ago when I first heard about the possibility of him being introduced either as like a TV character or in the films. I don't remember which one it was, but I know I heard about him being talked about as someone that would be brought in the future. And I had no idea who he was. I thought he was just, I knew he was just like a martial artist similar to Iron Fist. I don't actually know any of his origins. I just know he's a martial artist of some type. That's really all I know about his character. And I believe he's going to be played by an Asian actor, which, yeah, that's all I really know about the character. But what I was very surprised about when I heard this title was the subtitle. Not the name Shaanxi, I have no idea who he is, but hearing The Legend of the Ten Rings. That was super exciting because it goes back to the letdown of Iron Man 3. When they brought in the Mandarin, when he wasn't actually the Mandarin at all, he was just some fake guy pretending to be the Mandarin. I think the actual like explanation of his character was that he was just some drug addict actor that got paid by like an organization to pretend and act like he was the Mandarin. Um, it was a weird film to begin with. Iron Man 3, I didn't really enjoy that film at all. Um, it was kind of cool because of the fight scenes, but like apart from that, there was nothing really great, and it was a huge letdown for what they did with the Mandarin because I was a huge fan of that character. I had seen him in like I think the Iron Man animated series. I think that's what it was called. Um, that featured like Iron Man, Pepper, and Rhodey when they were like in high school, and you had a villain playing the Mandarin in that series. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I definitely remember loving that character and realizing like how much of a letdown that film was. It was just horrible for me to because I was super excited for it to begin with. But yeah, hearing this subtitle, "The Legend of the Ten Rings," was amazing because for those of you who don't know, the real Mandarin, I believe you saw it when you first saw the image of the fake Mandarin in Iron Man 3. He was like wearing 10 rings on his fingers, but those 10 rings for the actual Mandarin have supernatural abilities. Some of them are, I think, energy projection, like teleportation, probably increased strength, things like that. I don't remember exactly what each ring did, but yeah, it's basically like Infinity War, like the different Infinity Stones, things of that nature. I'm gonna guess that they're not gonna do the abilities on the same scale, just because it would sort of be weird to have like 10 Earth-based weapons that are just as powerful as the Infinity Gauntlet. So yeah, but yeah, I'm definitely excited to see the Mandarin in hopefully in his fullest in during the film. And even if he's just alluded to, or we see him start to grab the 10 rings, or things of that nature, or maybe he even just gets the 10 rings at the end of the film, I would still love to see that because that's like still a huge setup for the future. And like I've been waiting to see the real Mandarin since I believe the short that is like years old now, at least like 5 years old, I think, at this point, where you had like the Mandarin from Iron Man 3 in prison, and he was like grabbed by the actual Mandarin's henchman. So we have known that he exists in the MCU. We just haven't seen him in person, and we haven't actually seen him on screen. So yeah, definitely super duper excited for that. I'm excited to learn more about Shaanxi and really like figure out who he is and maybe even read some of his comics or just to learn more about the character because I don't think I've ever read anything with him in it. So yeah, I'm definitely excited for the film, and I think like regardless of who the main character is, I think Marvel knows at this point how to make good films. So if they're picking an actor for this role, it's definitely going to be good just because Marvel knows what they're doing at this point. I have like faith that they will do this film justice. So I'm excited for that. Yeah. So next up we have another Disney streaming service TV show, which is Wanda and Vision, or maybe just Wanda Vision. I'm not sure if there's an and in between, but regardless, it's a show about Wanda and Vision, Scarlet Witch and Vision. Not sure exactly when this is taking place. I think it takes place after Endgame. But the weird thing with that is, if you've seen Infinity War, Vision is dead. So I heard that he's going to be brought back somehow. And that's going to be like a big part of the TV show where he no longer has the Soul Stone in him, so he's just an artificial intelligence who's lacking a lot of the humanity that we originally saw with him. I could be completely wrong, but I remember hearing that somewhere, so I'm not 100% sure about that. But I think it'll be definitely interesting. I think those two actors work really well together, and I really enjoyed seeing them together in like the last few films. So I'm excited to see more of that. So that's all I really have to say about that. The one thing is that I heard that we will be learning more about Wanda's powers. Less on the mutation side, but more of the mystical aspects of her powers, because I believe she is a mutant, I think. Her character's always been a little bit wonky, but she's also, like, her powers are chaos magic. So she's a magician. Like, she's a witch. Hence her powers. Yeah, so I'm excited to see that as well. It's like always been something that I've wanted to see more of, and hopefully we'll actually get to see like the intricacy and the variety of powers that Wanda has, because we haven't really seen that since her initial introduction back in Age of Ultron. So definitely excited to see that. Now, in the same vein of magic and mysticism, the next film down the line will be Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. This will be in 2021. Now, this is one of the films, like, I loved the original, like, the first Doctor Strange film, and I was, like, super excited from, like, when that movie came out to see the next one, so I'm really excited that this film is going to be coming out very, like, within the next 2 years. With that, I read who the characters that will be in this film are, like the actress names, and I saw Elizabeth Olsen. So this means that Scarlet Witch will also be in the film, which definitely, I think that confirms that we will be seeing her magic. And hopefully see a lot more of the grandiose nature of her abilities, with the manipulation of fate, and things of that nature, because she can really decide, the way her powers works is when a timeline is about to split. I think this sort of makes sense, but for example, if someone's about to make one of two decisions, she can use her abilities to decide the outcome. So she can choose which of the universes continue forth. Yeah, so that's like a huge part of her abilities, and on top of that, she has reality warping capabilities, and the fact that we are going into the madness of the multiverse, it really makes me think that we are going to see exactly how powerful she can be, and possibly even see her when she's unhinged. And this could be like based off of something that happens in Wanda in Vision. If something really horrible happens and she just loses her mind, like, and Doctor Strange has to be someone that stops her. Like, they could go a lot of different routes with this film because of how broad the character of Wanda is in the comics, and the sheer number of things that she's done. Like, she's been a villain for the X-Men. She has been an Avenger. She has been someone who completely rewrote all of reality in a very popular story, House of M, which was, like, I believe, like 10, 15 years back. So, like, we've seen a huge array of things for her character, so I think it'll be super interesting to see her being brought into the Doctor Strange lineup. And on top of that, just the idea of actually bringing in the multiverse, because we were sort of teased with it with the trailers from Spider-Man Far From Home. But if you've seen that film, it was really all a lie. Yeah, so it'll be really cool to actually see the multiverse in its entirety, or at least just traveling between multiverses and or different universes and seeing how that goes. That'll definitely be cool, because in the original Doctor Strange film, we only saw the realm of Dormammu, which is a different universe, but we didn't really get to see as much of like multiversal travel and things of that nature. So I'm definitely excited for this. Yeah, I can't wait. So the next TV show on the Disney Plus streaming service has to do with a scene that I'm not particularly fond of in Avengers Endgame. And that is the alteration that they made to the timeline where Loki ends up escaping in 2012. So in that timeline, he might never come back in the future. He might never end up on Asgard. He might never be there for Thor: The Dark World. he might, yeah. So like it's a very different like convergence in the timeline, and that is the timeline that we will be seeing Loki in. So it's not Loki from the past in our actual original MCU timeline. It's a completely different version of the character. So really, they can do whatever they want with it, but I would have liked to see something that sort of tied more in to the actual series of events that we have in the main timeline. But regardless, Tom Hiddleston, I always like I wanted to see him come back ever since his death in Avengers Infinity War. So originally I thought it was going to be him having faked his death in some capacity and just trying to figure out what the hell to do. Possibly even like creating an allusion to the death of all of the Asgardians or something like that, like something like super huge that would show the level of power and magic knowledge that he had. But sadly, we never saw that. As far as I know, Loki is dead in the main Marvel timeline. So if this is the only way they could think of to bring him back without hindering on Loki's death and sort of moving forward, I'm all for it. I think it's going to be a great series. I'm definitely looking forward to it. But the one thing is, like, I didn't really like that scene from Endgame, and having this character continuing on in a completely different timeline is, I mean, it's fine, but I would have liked something that added to the main Marvel universe. But those are my thoughts on that. So next we have Marvel What If. This is an animated TV series that will actually tie in to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As I've spoken to as we've been talking about for like the last 20 minutes or so now, all of these TV shows are actually tied into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which hasn't really happened for any of the TV shows. There's never been a crossover of a television character coming in to the films before. So but there has been a couple of instances of the other way around. So they've been relatively separate, and that's really something that's going to be changing in Phase 4. But the What If series is, I think, going to be extremely interesting to watch because of anyone who's like read the comics knows what Marvel What If is. Marvel What If is a series of stories of random changes in the timeline to sort of see how a different series of events would have altered the timeline. Usually they're like dystopian futures. There's, I believe, What If storylines where like, what is it? Jean Grey Never Died, I think, is one of them probably. What else? Like Wolverine kills the entire universe. Deadpool kills the Marvel universe. Things of that nature. I would say What If storylines, I consider all of the alternate timelines to be sort of like What If stories, but I know there are actual stories that are just What If blah blah blah. I believe in a What If storyline, like Rogue picks up Thor's hammer, things like that. There's What If Age of Ultron never ended? I think that was one that I read that was like super fascinating. Because you still had like the superheroes fighting off against Ultron like years and years and years later. And it was super interesting to see that. So definitely excited to see that, and it's interesting to see that it's going to be animated because we're going to have a lot of the actual actors of the films come in and then just read for their roles, and then just have animations of those characters. So it's gonna be cool, and the big thing with that is we're actually going to see the Watcher. I guess it's gonna be a different Watcher from the main timeline, or actually it's Uatu the Watcher, I believe. So that's technically the main version of the Watcher, but he'll be the narrator for the entire series, and he'll sort of follow us through with the different timelines. So definitely excited to see that, and never thought that we would have like a real Watcher in the MCU as canon. We got that sort of group of Watchers with Stan Lee with his cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but even then it was only like 5-10 seconds of actual footage, so this is going to be interesting to actually see a Watcher for an entire series speaking to the audience. So now for the show that we've all been waiting for, Hawkeye. Um, so this series, I had absolutely no idea that this was even like in the works, or like even it had never even crossed my head that they would ever think of making a Hawkeye TV show, because Hawkeye's been retired for like 5 years now, and he just seems to come back for the big Avengers films. To just pop out of retirement and be like, yeah, I'll fight with you guys because I kind of have to. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be exciting because what we have is Hawkeye, as he is, training Kate Bishop, I think is the name of the second Hawkeye. So and I was never really like a big fan of like I never really read too many comics about Hawkeye, but I knew about the mentor relationship between him and Kate Bishop. I originally thought that they would be doing that with his daughter picking up the mantle later on down the line, but I guess that they're not going that route anymore. They sort of alluded to that, I thought, in Avengers Endgame in the opening credits when Hawkeye's daughter is using the bow and arrow. But I mean, I'm excited to see Kate Bishop and Hawkeye. I love Jeremy Renner as an actor. I think he's awesome. So I'd love to see where it goes. Yeah, I had no idea that this show was going to come out. It's going to be in fall 2021. So in 2 years' time, we'll have an official Hawkeye TV show. Yeah, I honestly just thought that Jeremy Renner was leaving the role after Avengers Endgame, because he finally got his happy ending with his family reunited with him. So it's going to be interesting to see. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is Thor: Love and Thunder, which is going to be the fourth Thor film with Chris Hemsworth. And I'm actually a little bit confused about this, just because I thought we weren't going to get any more Thor films, because Thor's heading off with the Guardians of the Galaxy as of the end of Avengers Endgame. But I heard that Valkyrie will be in the film, as well as Taika Waititi will be directing again, and we also have confirmed that Jane Foster will return. So, interesting. I've heard a couple things saying that Jane Foster might actually pick up the hammer, which mixed feelings, just because like we haven't really developed Jane Foster as much in the films. It sort of made sense for her to become Thor in the comics, because like she was such a huge character at that time, and in the past few years she was Thor for like quite a while. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. The other thing is like just the title. It kind of sounds like an old romance like novel, which is possibly what they were going for, because Jane Foster is returning. But yeah, I don't know. And also like it just was a little weird in terms of like the title, as well as the people that are coming back. I really thought that they were going in like a completely new direction with the character once again, him heading off and joining the Guardians. I thought he was just going to be a part of the Guardians of the Galaxy, but I guess that's not the case. I mean, it's a little weird, but I like Chris Hemsworth. I love Thor, and I definitely love what Taika Waititi did with Ragnarok. So I'm sure the film is going to be really good. It was just kind of a surprise. Yeah, so that's sort of my thoughts on that. Now we have the last thing, as far as I know, that was announced in Hall H, and this is the return of Blade. I had seen like bits and pieces of the original Blade films. I think there are three of them, but this is like far before the current MCU as we have it. So they're not canon as far as I know, unless they decide to make them canon at some point down the line. But I believe that the original actor will not be reprising the role. I think it's a completely new actor, unless I'm wrong. I don't know the actor of the original Blade films. But yeah, I'm excited. I know Blade's like history. He is half vampire, half human. I believe his mother was a vampire and his father was human, or possibly the other way around. But he is a vampire hunter. But he is I believe he's the only vampire that can walk in the day because he's alive. So yeah, his character's kind of interesting. He's like I believe he's crossed over with like Punisher, and people of that respect. So he's kind of like he's a more gritty character. He's a little bit more dark. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I kind of just want to see what the actor looks like decapitating vampires, and I think it'll be a really fun film. It'll be kind of I mean it might end up being kind of like the vampires in Marvel look similar to how vampires look in like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, things of that nature. They look kind of grotesque, I think. If I'm not mistaken, again, I haven't really watched the films, and the few scenes that I have watched, it was like a long time ago. So if I'm not mistaken, they do look a little bit different. They don't look like super glamorized like how Twilight vampires look. So I think it could be interesting. Again, it could be a way to delve into more mystical side, the more mystical side of the MCU, which it feels like, based off of the films that we have coming out, a lot of the films that we have, a lot of the TV shows, they are delving more into mysticism and magic. So definitely this falls in line with what they're doing in Phase 4. But yeah, so that's the last of the Phase 4 films that they have, that Kevin Feige announced at Hall H. The one last thing that I would like to say is that Kevin Feige did say that they ran out of time for talking about mutants and the Fantastic Four. So I mean that confirms that they do have plans for them some point down the line, probably, which makes sense because this Phase 4 lineup is just the next 2 years. So I mean, it would make sense. It stands to reason that they have plans for everything beyond that. Yeah, so I definitely am excited to see what they think and what they end up doing with those characters as well. So yeah. So if you liked the video and want to see more of me, I guess, I do a lot of different things at this point. I'm currently working on a digital systems design course, which is more academic in nature, but then I also have a couple Minecraft videos out. I do have some drawing videos, and I'm planning on doing. I'm planning on having a couple more comic-related videos as well in the near future. And at some point down the line, I would like to also do a couple of music covers with like drums or viola, and we'll just sort of keep going and seeing how it goes. But yeah, if any of that sounds interesting to you, please subscribe. All right, see you.